Hello folks, and welcome to my 1000 subscriber special, which happens to be on this here Nakamichi 480 cassette deck. Thanks to all of you who have subscribed throughout the last little while I've been doing this. I don't know how long I've been doing it now, but it's at least a couple of years, so thanks for helping make my channel blow up like it has. Very much appreciate it. Now before we get started on this machine, and there's a lot to do on this machine, I want to preface this by saying that this is not my brand. Never has been, probably never will be. Back in the 80s, I knew they existed, but I really didn't care for them very much because I thought all anybody ever talked about when it came to cassette decks was Nakamichi, Nakamichi, Nakamichi. And my brand was sort of the underdog, as I thought. But they're not really an underdog at all in TIAC. We're not talking about TIAC and Tascam today. We're talking about Nakamichi. Now, I'm still rather irritated by how much money it costs to buy one of these things. Any Nakamichi these days is overpriced in my mind and possibly overrated as well. Although some are more overrated than others and some are not overrated at all, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, the one I've got here is a 480. I bought this one so I could learn this particular transport. Nakamichi used 3 different transport types. There's the tri-tracer mechanism. There's the so-called classic transport, which is in this one. And then there's the Sankyo transport that's in decks like my BX150, which I did for my 500 subscriber special. And fair disclosure, this one cost me $260, which is way, way, way over budget. In fact, that's usually what I reserve for 3-head machines, and not only 3-head machines, but top-of-the-line 3-head machines. So, why was I willing to blow the budget on this one? Well, for one thing, I didn't know how long it was going to take for me to get to 1,000 subscribers, so I thought maybe it's best to line one up immediately after doing the BX150, so that's what I did. And the other thing is, I thought if I'm going to blow the budget on a 2-header, it's going to have to be cosmetically perfect, and that's what we've got here. It's a little dirty, but that's fine. That'll clean up. There's no markings anywhere on this unit. But there are problems, and you can see one immediately. Eject button stuck in. That is a very common issue with one of these. And there's, I think, 2 or 3 different ways you can use to deal with that, but I'll just go over them when I get in there, and I won't talk about that right now. This has all the usual stuff going on here. Supports all different tape types except ferrochrome, which is very common. Ferrochrome was only late 70s and very early 80s, so I wouldn't expect this thing to have that. I don't even have any ferrochrome tapes, so it doesn't make much difference to me. This one does support metal and chrome and normal, so that's all I needed it to do. But I'll tell you right now, I thought I was going to really like the silver face Nakamichi products, but this one's really not doing it for me. I don't know, maybe that's me having been spoiled by my Pioneer CTF 900 too much, but yeah, this one doesn't look as good as those Pioneers do, I have to say, but maybe I'll change my mind on that as we go. We need to figure out exactly what this does or does not do, and for that we have to already get the lid off because I can't eject the tape the way this is. So how about I get the lid off and we'll talk about what's on the inside. Okay, so the cover is off and we can finally start testing this thing to see how it is. I have not powered this up without you, but I have had the cover off without you. And you're probably wondering what's going on here. Well, that was a boo-boo I did. Basically, when I took this apart to inventory the capacitors to see what I needed for pre-service recapping, I put my hand down on this and broke the top part of the catch on here. So what I did was, I'll show you a little closer look here. I basically had some old 12 gauge Romex from an outlet wiring project, and what I did was I took the ground out of there. I cut about 6 inches off the ground and just wrapped it around there, and does the job. Easy fix. But yeah, you got to be careful when it comes to this 40-year-old plastic, otherwise that happens. Anyhow, I'll show you what's going on with the eject mechanism here. Basically, the eject is cable driven on this thing. The cable hooks onto this part right here, and then there's a brass collar down in there that's held in place by a clamp, and that breaks on these. In fact, there's the broken part right there. So the three methods to fix this are epoxy, build a new bracket, or rivet nuts. And I'm going to try the epoxy method. But that's for later, when we do the transport service. And I haven't decided yet whether or not I'm doing the transport service in one big, long, giant video or not. But we'll see how things work out. There's a lot to do to this unit. So let's plug it in for the very first time and see if it does anything. This has never been powered up. And let me see if I can eject before we can turn it on here. There we go. That's the first time that door's ever been opened. And thanks, Mr. Seller, for using styrofoam. Now I've got styrofoam inside my tape deck. Fantastic. Anyhow, lots of grunge on the capstans I'm seeing. There's lots around the take-up for sure. Supply also. I hope these pinch rollers are good because I do not have replacements and I do not plan on buying them. They feel all right. At least that one does. Okay, let's power on. Okay, and we've got lights in the display, so that's good. I'm replacing them anyway. Every single lamp in this thing is getting replaced. But at least it turns on. And I've got the home theater powered up right now, so we're going to get to hear it. But I just want to take this door off. And I want to see if we can get it to play. Nothing with the door open. Okay, it is playing. Oh, but did you see that? It took a while for the pinch rollers to come up. That's another common issue, and the supply side pinch roller didn't even move. So the important thing is when you have one of these and the pinch rollers don't move, don't force them. The way this transport is constructed, if you try to force those pinch rollers, they will cause the shaft they're on to become loose from the other side of the transport. And when that happens, you're in for a world of hurt. So, yeah, not good. At least the take-up side is working. I'm kind of reluctant to try to get any audio out of this thing, but we'll do a simple playback test and see if it does that. It's probably not going to be great, which is why I'm using the cassette from that was chewed up by that JVC auto reverse unit. See if anything happens. Oh, it was getting ready to eat the tape right there. Yeah, basically this isn't doing anything until we get in there and free up those pinch roller pivots. Again, very common problem. And I'm kind of tempted to show you how to possibly do that without doing a full transport service, but actually, you know what? Let me do that. Okay, so in order to get these pinch rollers to move again, we're going to use a combination of heat and oil. And I just want to check here to see just how bad this is. Oh yeah, the supply side is just seized right up. So let me see if I can find a good angle to get at this here. And we're going to use heat first and then oil, and then we're going to tilt the deck up that way to hopefully get something in there and get that moving. Usually I like to have these out or these transports out before I do something like this, but I'm going to try to do it with the deck intact first. See if I can get my soldering iron close enough. So basically what I'm going to do, if I can get ready here, so I'm going to use my sewing machine oil and my soldering iron. And I think the soldering iron's hot yet. Yes, it is. I've got it set to 400 degrees, so you don't want to touch it on any plastic parts. What we're going to do is we're going to hold the iron against the side of the pinch roller pivot here. Probably can't see that. And we're just going to heat up that pinch roller. Just a little bit. That might do it right there, and we'll see if we can move it. Does not appear to be moving. Nope, it hasn't moved yet. So we're probably going to have to do that again, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to tilt it up like this. I'm going to get my sewing machine oiler in there. I'm just going to dribble some oil. Right there at the top. Don't want to use too much because otherwise it'll get everywhere and that's not good. I'm going to go at it with the iron again. Sorry to bump you. Just got to work it until it moves a little more freely is all. Just trying to get it so the oil can work its way in. Okay, the pinch roller is now engaging. It's very slow about it, but it is moving. That'll get better as the oil gets in there. Oh, look how dirty this is. Another quick little drop of oil. All right, maybe that'll get her. No, it's in the process of seizing up again, so this is not going to work. Not in the short term and not in the long term, but we did hear some sound coming out of it, so that's about all I wanted to do for now. Now we got to get the bottom off and talk about capacitors. Now, what do you want to do when you have one of these things? Well, what I want to do is I want to replace every single one of these orange polypropylene capacitors. They're terrible. They all have to go. Back when they were first implemented, they thought they would never fail, but yeah, by the time you get to one of these units here in 2024, they've all pretty much either are about to fail or have already failed. And there's a lot of them that are in the bias oscillator circuit. And when those fail in the bias oscillator circuit, it takes a bunch of related components out with it. So when that happens, you get no record. So yeah, it's a good idea to go in and replace all these first thing. And that's what I'm going to be doing this afternoon before we get into the transport service proper. I've got new lamps for every single part of it. Got some for the control buttons. That's these here. This is the shutoff lamp replacement. That's the critical one. That's the one you're going to want to replace every time you're into one of these. And I've got new lamps for the meters as well. Basically not doing LEDs anywhere. And I'll see if I can show you the shutoff lamp here. The critical one. Probably can't show it to you because the transport's not out yet, but it attaches on this board somewhere. And when that shutoff lamp dies, you basically get no playback because the deck can't figure out whether or not you're actually playing anything. So good idea to preemptively replace those. And my shutoff lamp is the JKL part number 23. You have to get these from Mauser. DigiKey doesn't carry those. Anyhow, I've already got all my parts here. I'm about $300 into this machine so far before even getting started on anything. For replacing those polypropylene capacitors, I've got WEMA, pretty much for all of them but one. And the one that doesn't have a replacement with WEMA is going on with this one. And I can't seem to brain well enough to figure out exactly what I ordered for these, but yeah, WEMA didn't have parts available for one of them, so yeah, I got WEMA galore here. And I should mention the power supply is also getting recapped. This is one of the fusible resistors for the bias oscillator in case I need it. Replacement transistors for the bias oscillator. More fusible resistors. And more fusible resistors. I got resistors galore. I got parts galore. I've got not so much sanity, because otherwise I probably wouldn't have paid $300 for one of these. Guess what got recapped? That thing up there. There will be an update video coming on that, but it's keeping me company during my recap job today, which is complete. And I think it's complete anyway. I got these two caps changed. One's Panasonic FR, the other's Rubicon. And these two have been done. And this one way in the corner has been done. And of course we've got all these little WEMA caps sprinkled around the board now. They're all in there. And the one that didn't, or the location that didn't get WEMA is these two up here. I believe those are Vichy. Not sure. Anyway, it's all done now and we're ready to go for the transport service, theoretically, but first let's see if it powers up and works. Alright, let's see if it powers up. It does. Probably won't have anything else happening in here. Oh, I can't remember which button's which now. Not sure what that button does. Oh well, we gotta get into this transport and service it. Let's do that now. I don't know that I'm going to like working on this transport. I gotta say, I got it out without too much difficulty, but just looking at the way it's built, I can just see myself getting incredibly pissed off at this thing once I get into it and start working on it. But before we do that, we need to talk about how it's mounted inside the deck itself. See, the way they've got it from factory is the head wires come behind this bracket here, through here, and then back through here somehow. It's kind of ridiculous, honestly. I'm not sure if I'm going to be putting it back that way when I put it back together, if it ever goes back together. But the main area of concern I wanted to show you here is up here. This is the record switch right here, and there's a cable that attaches to this bracket, and fair warning, I can just see this old plastic just breaking on you once you remove the cable from it. I'll show you the cable end. This is it here. And it's this brass collar that clips into that plastic thingamadoodle. And then there's this eyelet here. That eyelet hooks onto this spring here. And there's a spring from the front, a grounding spring, that also goes through that little eyelet. So remember that. But yeah, this transport, I don't know that I'm going to like it at all. Honestly, I can just see a bunch of this old brittle plastic breaking when I try to do work on it. But I'm going to cover the various options of fixing that eject thing there. You can kind of see it through there. The broken off piece goes right on top there. And then they've got this adjustment screw right through there that you can adjust to clamp that down. And I mentioned one of the fixes for this is to use a rivet nut. Well, you install the rivet nut into that little hole there. And obviously epoxy is epoxy. We'll get to that soon enough. But just looking at this, I'm not sure the epoxy is going to even stick to this stuff. This is really smooth white nylon. I'm going to try to scuff it up so that the JB weld sticks to it, but I don't know if it will. So could be at the end of this we still don't have working eject, but as long as I can get into it and eject it from up top here, that's no big deal to me. If the epoxy doesn't work, I'm going to buy the rivet nuts and do that, but I didn't want to do that just yet because this thing cost me enough. So we're trying the epoxy first. And then the third way people usually deal with that is they drill a hole right through the side of this block here, and in that manner you can fashion sort of a metal bracket to go over top of the broken off piece, and then just kind of clip it in place or something. That's another way you can do it, but I don't really want to do it that way. I don't really want to have to buy more tools and stuff if I don't have to. I'd rather use the rivet nut. I think it's a better solution for this, honestly. But yeah, I guess we got to get started tearing into this, and I definitely want to check this this belt for stretch. It might be good. I hope it's good because I don't know if I've got a replacement. I have a Deck Tech belt that should work, possibly, but this looks like it's a fairly critical belt because it's dual capstan closed loop. I don't know why NAC had to do that for a two-header, but they did. Anyhow, yeah, it's time to start tearing into this thing, and I just don't really like my chances of working on this one. For one thing, look at this crap down here. They've used these collars to hold these capstans in position. Why they couldn't use regular nuts like every other manufacturer, I don't know, but they've got these press-on collars, and that's already pissing me off. Because I know that the older 480s don't have these. They have regular nuts. Why couldn't I have gotten one of those? Oh well, we'll deal with it. I suppose this is why the service manual wants you, or all the other people that work on these say you have to have an alignment gauge to work on these, because I can just see that being a nightmare to line up without one of those things, but I'm still going to try and find a cheap way to do that, just to help you guys, because I've got an alignment gauge now. You're going to see it in action, but yeah, those alignment gauges ain't cheap, so I'm going to try to find a way to do it cheap for you guys. Well, no present like the time, I guess. So let's get started on this. Okay, that's freed up. We'll at least check to see how stretched this belt is. It should be a 9.2 inch internal circumference. All right, let's check the belt. We have about 130 millimeters, or 5.1 inches. That is way stretched. When you install the belt, it goes around, let's see if I can show you. It goes around like this and then up to the motor pulley. So bear that in mind. And I should mention I've got 2 idlers here for this thing, because in my delusion I thought maybe I'd want to deal with this transport more than once, but I've just got this feeling I'm not going to like this transport at all once I get done with it. We're going okay so far, but yeah, I don't know. And I should mention I've already cleaned the capstans off because I don't want to pull all that crappy grunge through the bearings, but we have to take these off now. And we do have springs to keep track of. Okay, so this one is the supply side capstan, and this will be the take-up capstan. And once again, we'll put that. Looks like we've got a little cup down here to hold that spring as well. Interesting. Okay, I'm just checking some of these molding things here to see if any of are broken off, and they don't appear to be. So I'm not going to worry about it. These are thick enough that they wouldn't get into harm's way if they fell off or something. Now, what we're going to have to do is remove the sub-chassis, this plate. And that's going to be fun because there's a mode potentiometer here. I'm definitely going to want to clean that at some point, but I don't think I'll do it now. But yeah, we got to continue on here. So before we start pulling screws out of this thing, we're going to have to remove some springs, it looks like. There's 3 of them. There's one here, one over here, and one up here. And we've also got some zip ties to get rid of, it looks like, as well. So I'm just going to do that real quick. I decided to sleep on this and give it a rest overnight to think about it and how it's built, and I'm kind of warming up to the transport a little bit, but yeah, I could see why there are so many techs that don't like this particular Nakamichi transport, or working on Nakamichi in general, because some of these design decisions are not making me very happy here, especially all the brittle old nylon in here. And fair disclosure, I'm expecting the little plastic retainer on this thing to break when I try to reinstall this, so it could very well happen that this particular unit will not record once I'm done with it, but really I'm just here to learn different transports and how they're put together and how to service them better. I'm not restoring this to sell. This is for my own personal edumacation, as it were. Come on off there, you stupid little zip tie. Alright, we got the rat's nest freed up, so maybe now we can start with the springs here. And I've left this zip tie on. This goes around this post right here, so I'm gonna try to reuse it. I don't know if I can. And the other thing I've decided is to go ahead and make this a multi-part project. I can just see myself trying to rush through this and so I can get it done in one video and then coming to regret it later. So I think we're going to do the backside of the transport, or at least what's in here, and then I'll make a whole separate video of the front side of the transport. I was hoping to get around to showing you how to use that alignment gauge today, but quite frankly, it's not that hard to use. So I think I'm going to let my Japanese import video speak for itself on that one. You can kind of see me using it, or showing you how to use it on there. So I'm hoping this comes apart without too much trouble here. And yeah, the other thing is I don't want to spend 3 weeks or so trying to service this transport and then having you wait all that time to see anything about this. I'd rather just get as much as I can done for next week so you can see at least that part of the video. And then the rest of this will be done when it's done, I guess. Okay, that's a different screw than the rest. Keep that in mind. Okay, we've got 5 same screws and 1 longer screw. And the longer screw goes in there. So, this should be ready to come apart now, I think. Unless there's some shenanigans with that potentiometer there. And the other thing I'm going to have to do while I've got this apart is I have to rebuild this control motor. I've noticed it's dead spotting. So I'm not going to show that on camera. But if you want to know how I'm going to service that, just watch my video on doing the same thing with the BX150. Should be a fairly similar motor. Okay, these wires are kind of hanging things up here. Okay, the belt for the mode control wants to come off, so I'm just going to slip it off with my dental pick there. And it looks like this transport just splits apart easily enough. I'm not sure that it does split apart easily enough, but it looks like it should. Oh, we got a belt coming off from the front here. I'm guessing that's either for the counter or for the shutoff. So I'm just going to do the same thing with that. We'll reinstall that from the front side when we get to that part. Okay, now before we get any further into this, I want to check this belt here. This is the mode belt, and I would like to see how thick it is. 1.5 millimeters. I'm going to have to go with my 2 millimeter belts in order to replace this, I think. Just basically do it the same way as I did the TAC V900X. Go with a slightly bigger belt than this so it'll have the grip it needs to spin that mode wheel around. And it looks kind of nasty in there, but I don't think it is that nasty. But I'll set that off to the side for now. Just trying to free up enough of these wires here so we can split the mechanism a little better. Not much slack here to work with. Nakamichi could have put this on a connector or something and that would have made me happy, but no, they did not do that. Okay, so here we go. Just having a look at the idler. It's very hard. It needs to be serviced. And I can remember seeing there's an E-clip on back in order to detach this, I think. I'm not sure I want to do that from the back, though. I think I want to just pop it off from here, if I can. Oh, almost lost that spring, didn't we? Okay, so there's two washers here, a little one and a big one on top of each other, it looks like. Yes. And then the E-clip goes on top of the little washer. I know you can't see that, but maybe if I do this, you can see it. Okay, so here's the E-clip. Get off there. And here's the little washer. And then the big one. So I'm going to leave all those together for now. I'll get this little springy doodle off so you can see it. And then the idler comes right off. Yeah, that is hard as a rock. I'll zoom you out a bit so you can see what I'm doing over at the transport. I'm just checking the felt here. There doesn't appear to be anything on it, so that's good. So let's get this idler done. It's all got to get done, doesn't it? All right, now the idlers I bought are from Fix Your Audio. And we're going to just check and see if they're the right actual size. I bought two of them, just in case. Yeah, the new one's slightly bigger, but it'll work. Slightly bigger on the outer diameter, that is. And this is most likely why it was starting to eat the tape when I had it playing earlier. Oh, and one other thing I should mention. I discovered I have the wrong belt for the capstan. It should be a 9.6, not a 9.2. So I do not have a belt for this. However, if the actual belt is supposed to be 9.6, then I can most likely get away with just reusing the old belt because it was still in really good shape otherwise. It's just a little bit stretched, is all. All right, new idler is on. That should make happy. I don't know how far I'll be going with re-greasing anything in this transport because the grease is actually pretty good in this thing, but whatever. All right, let's start on some Molykote. Remember, this is an idler with a felt clutch that contacts this part here, so you do not want any grease around there. What I'm going to do is the usual stuff. Just a little dab like so, and then we'll just go install it. Like so. Wait, I'm kind of thinking about cleaning this before I do that. And we're going to have to be careful because that idler piece is plastic, but I'm going to use the acetone to hopefully clean this pulley a bit. Say what you want about Nakamichi, but at least they use brass pulleys in half this stuff. Actually, that's really not very dirty. Okay, I'm content to leave well enough alone there. As long as it's relatively clean. I'm going to go over that with isopropyl alcohol because I want to get the acetone off that pulley now. And there we go. You can see there's moly coat on the end of the shaft there, and that's where exactly I want it. I want it on the end of the shaft and not down inside the felt. Alright, now a little more moly coat is called for, I guess. I'm just going to put some on the end of this spring here. This part's going to be fun because of the spring. It always is. I'm going to hold that in place with my thumbnail. A little bit of moly coat where the E-clip is going to go. And you probably cannot see what I'm doing, but it's impossible for me to show you at the moment. I'm installing the E-clip. All right, we got it. That should make very happy now. Just check the brake linkage here. It's doing all right, but it could use a little moly coat. And should something happen to this transport before I get it all back together and it breaks or something, I'm just going to use it as a parts machine for my 10,000 subscriber threshold. Even though I'm probably going to regret that decision at some point. Now we're going to clean all the grease off from this area here. This is where the potentiometer engages with the, well, you can't see it, with this thing up here. Going to clean the old grease off here and put new grease. That's the plan. But yeah, it's either I get comfortable with this transport or face the idea that I'm taking many very high-end Nakamichis off the table if I decide I don't want to deal with this transport, because the Dragon uses this transport. So yeah, pretty much most of the high-end Nakamichis use this transport. There's a few that don't. Some use the Sankyo transport, but most use this one. And since I've got a ZX9 on my Grail list, I should really become more comfortable with this. Now, I don't know exactly how this arm engages with the pulley back here, but I'll worry about that later. Yeah, and it's important to note that the slot in this little doohickey here goes on top of that right there. So, very important to remember. Let's see, anything else I gotta clean while I'm under here? Yeah, I hope I'm applying this to the right surfaces. I'm not sure if I am. Could be I'm greasing up things that don't need to be greased up now, but I'm not sure that's the case. Oh wait, I think I just figured it out. This arm goes down in here, and as the gear turns, it comes up this way and then through that spiral. Or probably not entirely through the spiral. I think this arm goes through that spiral. But, yeah, it doesn't look too complicated from this side of the mechanism. Of course, we've got to deal with this shutoff lamp down in that area there yet, but that'll be the front side of the transport where we deal with that. Now, do I want to deal with the reel tables? Yeah, they could use a little grease. If I can get them apart. Yeah, they don't come up from below, so Talk about losing pieces. Actually, I should put these in order of how they come off, or go on, or come off and go on. Whatever. And there we go. There is a felt clutch underneath these reel tables, so keep that in mind. We do not want any oil on that felt clutch. That is not very slick anymore, and that doesn't help. There's a little spring underneath here also. Keep that in mind. So this might be interesting how I deal with this time, because oh yeah, I guess there's a little catch there that holds that down. Good! I don't think I want to release this part. Oh, there's another felt clutch in there. Alright, so I'll get some cleaning supplies ready here. Let's see if I can move this out of the way so you can see. Yeah, on this one I definitely want to slow down because this is already running long. If I try to do this all in one video, I'm going to regret it. I just know I will, so best to slow down, take my time, and get everything done. Just using isopropyl alcohol to clean the outside of the reel hub here. Then I'll go up through the middle with isopropyl alcohol on a cotton pipe cleaner. Just inspecting for damage, and I don't see any, which is always good. And now, moly coater oil. Always seems to come down to that. I'm just going to go with moly coat. I usually do that anyway. EM30L, if you're wondering. Basically just the lightest of coatings there. I gotta push my brakes out of the way. I suppose that'll do. Rather have too little moly coat than too much, and I need to clean that as well. And I probably need to re-clean the shaft as well. That's no problem. We can do that. A little bit more moly coat. Yeah, this transport's all right. I'm not thrilled with it, but it's all right. I'll probably live to regret saying that, but for now, it's all right. That does not seem to be sitting the way it's supposed to. I think I put it together wrong is what I think. How's about we try this again? No, something is still not right. I think I put the this part on backwards. I think this goes like that. Yes, that looks right. Alright, I'm going to go off camera and I'm going to do the other one, and then we'll pick up again after that's done. So the next step in our little proceedings is to replace this belt back in here, which is extremely stretched. Not exactly sure what measurement it's supposed to be, but it's got to get done, so it's going to get done. I'll just pull it out for the time being, and you'll notice that these screws are gone now. This is so I can service the cam motor, which I will do off camera, like I said. And we got to find a new belt for that section. I'm going to go with my thinnest belts for this one, because it looks like that's what it takes. These are my 0.7 millimeter ones. They look a little bit smaller than what Nakamichi had here, but it's a not terribly critical belt, so not too worried about it. Okay, about 120 millimeters internal circumference. So I'm going to try for 110, I think. So we should get 55 on here if we find the right one. And that's the one we're going to use right there. Try not to mix up the old and new belts here. I'll put this one off to the side with the old capstan belt. And we'll just install this now. There, I got it around that pulley. I thought I had it around that pulley. I gotta look down from the top to see it. All right, I got it. I think it's on. Let me just check. Yes, it is on. So that's that part done. Now we got to do the hard part, I guess, and that's fix up this eject thing. All right, this is going to be tricky, because I've got all these wires going between the mechanism, and it makes not happy for yours truly. I'm going to try to set this up so I can actually work on this. It's not going to be easy. I got wires and motors hanging off all over the place here. This is the piece here we're talking about. And where is my other section that broke off of there? I had it right here. It's right up there with the faceplate. So this little piece with the screw on it originally went right there, or thereabouts. And what happens is the little plastic, or the little brass collar on this cable gets clamped down in there for the eject mechanism to work. And I'm not happy with Nakamichi for doing it this way, I'll tell you what. This didn't need to be this overcomplicated just for an eject mechanism. Why couldn't they have triggered it from here? This also triggers the eject. This little nub here. I don't get it. But yeah. Like I said, there are a few ways you can deal with this. You can build a bracket using a metal strip or something like that to go over top and just sort of hold this back down. Like so. You can try epoxy, and that's what I'm going to try, but the more I look at this, the more I think the rivet nut idea is the best course of action for this. See if I can show you here. See, there's this hole right here. That's the hole through which you adjust this screw over here. And what you can do is just install a rivet nut into this hole and just run a screw straight down from here. And yes, I can understand the concerns that this might deform this this plate here, but I don't really have those concerns. I think Nakamichi's official fix is supposedly somewhere along those lines as well. If Nakamichi themselves would do it that way, I don't have a problem doing it that way. So, yeah, I think the next time I work on this transport, I'm going right to the rivet nut. It's just I didn't want to spend the money on this thing after how much it cost me. And there's another thing we have to address here. Well, we are at it. If I can even show you. I'll get you off tripod now and show you that way. Yeah, see that right here? This shaft? That is the backside of the supply side pinch roller shaft. And what happens is when the grease in those shafts seizes up, sometimes these can let go and move around, and you don't want that because they're friction fit. Another boneheaded Nakamichi decision, if you ask me. They could have just gone in with an E-clip or something like that and had it not be a problem, but no, they had to reinvent the wheel or make it intentionally difficult. So I've heard on the ones that use the plastic nut from the front, they don't have all this stuff sticking up, but thankfully we've got all this stuff sticking up and we can build a collar around this with epoxy to hold it in place, and I think I will be doing that. I don't think this one's loose, but I don't want it to come loose, because if the supply side guide misaligns in any way, we are eating tapes. And it's going out of alignment. And I'm only getting in here once. I'm sorry. So yeah, while I've got the epoxy mixed up for this dojangler, I'm going to build a collar around that and hopefully hold that in place permanently. So I'll mix up the epoxy in a second here. I just have to figure out how this originally went. I think it went like that and not the 180-degree direction. And I want to mark that so I know exactly how to reinstall it. Now, epoxy on its own is not going to stick to this crap. We're going to have to at least scuff up the sides and possibly build an entire sarcophagus around this thing in order to get it to hold this piece back in. And it may not work. I may be shopping for rivet nuts anyway, but yeah. The way I'm going to scuff those up is by using my Dremel tool. I know there are people who plastic weld this piece back on, but I don't have much luck plastic welding, so we're going to use the Dremel. That should just about do it, but I'm realizing now I gotta scuff up the side that's got my mark on it, so. Bye-bye, Mark. I'm just gonna remark it up here. Just so I know. Now it's time to mix up the epoxy. Well, it's time to clean, then mix up the epoxy. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack the broken piece down with super glue before I actually go in with the epoxy. And hopefully that'll keep it there so we can do this. And I'm not going to treat at all this shaft here. I think the epoxy is going to hold to that fine as is. Remember, we're building a collar so it doesn't pull through from the other side. And since there's a detent in that shaft, I don't think that'll be a problem. I just don't think it will be at all. I don't know if this cheap dollar store super glue is holding up anymore, but I've got lots of it, so I'm not too worried about it. There, just got to let that set up. And we should be able to use the epoxy to finish the job. At least that's the plan. I don't know if it's a good plan, but it's a plan. All right, that's already holding. So let me get the epoxy. Okay, so I realize this is going to be blocking you somewhat, or blocking your view somewhat, but it is what it is. I'm going to cut the end off of the Q-tip in order to mix this stuff. And this is the 6-minute quick weld stuff from JB Weld I'm using for the very first time. I've never used this epoxy before. All right, we've got a limited window to put this stuff on because it's 6-minute stuff. So let's get started. I'd rather mix too much of this than too little, honestly, so that's what I'm doing here. Should do it right there, I think. I'll show you what I've done with the pinch roller shaft as well. You can see I've got another little mini sarcophagus for that, but yeah, we just got to wait for this to set up and see if it holds. And I hope I didn't get any epoxy on that screw. I think I might have. I better check that now while I can still make corrections. Yeah, there is a little bit on that screw, so I got to clean that off real quick. Grab my acetone for that. I apologize if you can't see this, but I need to make sure all the garbage is off that. Otherwise it will not screw down and we're in for a bad time. And I did get it cleaned off. There, that should do it, I think. I hope. Now I just gotta throw my excess epoxy away. So that's basically all we're going to be able to do on this transport for now. I'll come back to this on Sunday or Monday and we'll continue from there. Very likely I'll have done the cam motor off camera by that time, but yeah, we should be able to put the whole back of this transport together now once this epoxy dries. But yeah, we'll do a little bit of an update first. I'll let you know how well this worked out. I think it's gonna work. It may work. It may not work as well as I'd like it to, but we can always go back with the rivet nut, and I'm really not too concerned if this doesn't eject properly. So it's been a couple of days now, and the epoxy has had plenty of time to cure, so let's see how we did. As you can see, I've already got the little collar dealie stuck in there, just so we can get this tightened back down, and hopefully everything's good now. But yeah, the epoxy is nice and hard on both the rear of the capstan, not capstan, the pinch roller pivot mount, and the sarcophagus, as it were. Now, you're probably wondering about how to get these clips off, and I was too, but it's actually not that hard. It's deceptively easy, in fact. I'm talking about these C-clips over here. All you do is you basically just pry them off with a screwdriver, and then you press them back on. Real easy. You don't need to mess with snap ring pliers or anything like that. But yeah, we should be ready to tighten this down and see if it holds. So that's what I'm going to do now on camera, and then we'll see if the epoxy lets go. Now, we don't want to tighten this real tight. All we need to do is immobilize this brass sleeve here so the eject will work again. We don't need to Hercules this down until we break something else. So that's what I'm going to do now. That seems good. Let me see if I can get around to the actual eject mechanism and you can see it work maybe. Okay, I've got my fingers on it now. I'll zoom out a bit. Okay, I think we can call that a successful repair. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to end this now and call it part 1. I'm going to go off camera to rebuild this reel motor because it does have dead spots. I'll leave a link in the description as to how to do one of those control motor rebuilds to my video on the BX150 when I did the same thing there. And then yeah, in a couple of weeks we'll get around to part 2, and that'll give me plenty of time to get the front of this transport serviced. I expect it's going to be a real pain, so it's probably good that we're leaving this to be a 2-parter. So yeah, I'll see you next time.